Hello and welcome to the 40th episode of UPSC Prep Decoded. There couldn't be a better day to announce that on popular demand, we bring to you an audio and video format that will be broadcasted every week 2 and 4 of each month. I am Khushi Bola, your host for today, and we are in conversation with our director and mentor, Mr. Aashay Abhyankar. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Khushi.
Our discussion today revolves around the evolution of foreign policy in India. So, starting with the basics for our listeners, sir, could you please elaborate on what foreign policy is?
Absolutely. When nation states emerged in the period post the Industrial Revolution, you realize that there was a lot of objectives, goals, strategies of the states which had to align domestically and had to align internationally as well, purely because trade, commerce, movement of people, goods, services, technical know how needed some kind of a platform or a framework within which the relations could develop. And this is exactly where foreign policy has developed and has been born out of. Now, most of the states that developed their foreign policy were able to develop it only at a time period when the uh, the decolonization process started, right? So when the decolonization process started, you had a large number of the developing world which started identifying what their foreign policy should look like, how they should align their domestic and their national objectives with their international commitments and obligations. And they were able to refine, redefine, and reposition themselves in the international arena.
Thank you, sir. Sir, could you shine light upon the static principles and the objectives that guide India's foreign policy?
This is a very interesting question, you see, because India was able to fight off colonial yoke 150 years odd of British rule in India. And when we got independent, the entire process of independence, the Constituent Assembly, the framing of the Constitution, stalwarts and luminaries that had participated in the freedom movement were able to delve deep into India's civilizational ethos, its values, and its principles, and try and put into place certain pillars of India's foreign policy, namely the Panchashil, which is talking about peaceful coexistence, five principles that draws itself from Indian civilizational ethos, the principles of Buddhism, and out of that we have something which India was one of the front runners in, was the creation of an organization known as the non-alignment movement. And the non-aligned movement is essentially another very, very important cornerstone of India's foreign policy, where we believe that we are not going to be aligned to either one bloc. And when I mention either one bloc, because these principles were absolutely time and context specific, the horrors of the World War II were witnessed. The world was deeply polarized into two camps, the capitalists and the communists, both having their own ideological setups and running into the race of something which was also defined as the Cold War, a period of about 3.5 decades that ensued, where these two blocs stopped short of actual war. Now, India, because of capitalism and also because of the foreign rule, had decided that it would focus more on its socialist objectives, its welfare orientation, because of the large population, the exodus of refugees at independence, and so on and so forth. Now, it is this where we try and walk the middle path, particularly in the economic makeup, and go in for what we call as a mixed economy model. And this non-aligned objective allows India to balance its relationships, its global partnerships, without actually committing to any one ideological bloc.
Correct, sir. Sir, like you mentioned, the domestic needs of the country, they drive the international policy. Could you throw some more light upon that?
Absolutely. Now, if you look at the entire focus of India's foreign policy today, it is completely and entirely redefined according to the current context, whether it be social, political, economic, or the like. So when we look at a neighborhood first policy in India, we are trying to build as many strong partnerships and groupings that we can, purely because the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, also known as the SAC, has really not taken off beyond just the cultural dimensions. So today, when we look at organizations like the BIMSTAC or the IOR ARC or the BRICS, India is trying to forge ahead in South Asia, particularly trying to position itself as one of the major pivots in Asia, purely to drive a very, very realistic foreign policy. Now, this also happens with regard to the partnerships that we are building with the Indo-Japan partnership, the Indo-Korean partnership, where we are trying to reposition ourselves from a look east to an act east kind of an approach, focusing on skill development, entrepreneurship, better amount of technical know-how, information technology exchanges. So India is really forging ahead and trying to build these partnerships at multiple levels. This also happens through a diaspora connect. Now, we have a large number of Indian diaspora dispersed all over the world and contributing immensely to the white collar workforce, the blue collar workforce, and absolutely at cutting edge places in almost all forms of industrial and business setups. Just currently, if you were to go through and check out who the CEOs and the top head honchos of most of the global conglomerates are, again, like I said, cross-cutting different sectors, you would be pleased to know that Indians are almost at the helm of affairs everywhere around the globe.
Right, sir. Sir, in terms of a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council, what would that mean for our country, and what means would we have to adopt to achieve this goal?
Uh, Absolutely. Now, you see, when the United Nations was created, like I mentioned to you, it was the culmination of World War II. And the Security Council, with 15 members, 10 of whom are non permanent and 5 who are permanent members, or also known as the Big Five, have the option of exercising veto and actually taking action against errant member states. Now, these big five, as they were known, were essentially the victors in World War II. And these were the ones who had the representation on the global big table. A lot of things have changed thereafter, from a bilateral or bipolar world to a unipolar world to today a multi-aligned, a multipolar world with multiple regional partnerships. And India believes that it has the democratic values, it has the diplomatic, cultural, economic, social, and political legitimacy to actually sit on that high table and to have it redefined and realigned onto current interests. Also, one of the important things to note here is that a big shot in the arm for India comes from Russia and from the United States, who have completely and solidly backed India's claim for a permanent seat at the United Nations. But if you see most of the big five members, these are giant global economies. And India is trying to forge ahead. It is trying to build multiple partnerships purely to reach the goal of a $5 trillion economy, where we can be among the top three GDP contributors globally. And we are able to develop and convert the resource into capital, both in the physical, social, and the human sense. So I think once India forges itself ahead on these multiple fronts, we're definitely going to be getting a red carpet invite to the UNSC.
So this wraps up what the future of the country looks like in terms of the emerging global order. The discussion was incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Kushi. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
To our listeners, if you enjoyed our podcast, you can like and download it. Your inputs, feedbacks, and suggestions are welcome, and you can contact us through our email ID to info@abhyankarias.com. Show us some love on Instagram, Twitter, and our Facebook handles. And don't forget, we're available on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. A very happy new year to all our listeners. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Keep listening and stay tuned.